Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Snowy Revenge Garden. I am Carmen Cook. Huge kudos to my husband. Thanks for keeping the gazebo going this morning. I had a few little technical difficulties, but he made sure we could get our reading, even if it is a little bit late. I apologize. Let's get today's reading started with Diana Marik's Veil of Destiny. Miranda was admiring Herbert's lands from the roof of the manor when she heard Romere's voice. There you are. What's this? He held up the cane she'd bought him in London. Present for you, though she took the cane from him. I'm thinking of keeping it. Let me show you something. She cupped her hand over the top and the crystal orb started glowing. Pretty cool, huh? I know this type of cane. He pressed a tiny lever near the top. Immediately a dagger shot from the bottom end. Miranda stared in amazement. Now that's something the sales clerk forgot to mention. He probably wasn't aware of its lethal nature. Please be careful with it. He retracted the blade and laid the cane against the roof's barrier. I will. Miranda admired the sun's descent on the horizon. England is truly a beautiful country. She inhaled the early evening air. Look over those rolling hills. Have you ever seen such greenery before? Romere held her from behind. Perhaps, but I've never embraced such beauty before. He kissed her temple. She slanted him a look. Flatterer. Yes, I am. But you look especially beautiful with the fading sun's rays on your face. She covered his arms with hers, enjoying the sensation of him at her back. How is your ride? Sublime. Herbert has magnificent horses. By the way, he knows you're an elemental. She turned in his arms. How? In London, you kept your tea steaming long after everyone else's had cooled. He noticed. He also recommended we read a book by Paracelsus, Philosopha Magna. He said it contains information on elementals. That's written in Latin, isn't it? I'll read through it and let you know what it says. I also asked him about the Book of Origins. Sadly, he's never heard of it, and Herbert is one of the most well-read men I know. Thank you for asking. And how did you spend your afternoon? After Winnie showed me around the castle, I read some of Esmeralda's diaries. She very much loved Leland, was heartbroken when she thought he'd died in battle. She'd never have taken up with Lord Acton if she hadn't been lied to. She called him the deceiver. Disturbing reading material. Yes, she shrugged. Esmeralda and Leland were madly in love, and they were cheated out of a happy life together because of one man's cruelty. It was centuries ago, Miranda. And as Winnie pointed out, they had several months of joy together. Should have been years, if not centuries. Esmeralda heard rumors that Leland had survived the battle and went looking for him. She found him drunk in a brothel. Having thought Esmeralda cheated on him with Acton, he had decided to drown in despair and drink. Romere exhaled. She should have confronted him. They could have worked things out. Not so. She was already pregnant. As humiliated as she felt by Leland had taken other lovers, she still wished that it had been his child. What became of the child? I don't know. But Esmeralda grew terribly despondent. The longer she lived with Acton, she saw his malevolence. Why didn't she just leave him? Her last diary entry said that she was planning to disappear so that he'd never find her. I guess we'll never know. She peered up at him. She was a powerful elemental, Romere. I hate the thought of two lovers not being together because of someone like Acton. Leland used to sing her songs he'd learned in his travels, she teased. You never sing to me. I'm a man of many talents, Miranda. Sadly, singing isn't one of them. How come you've never sung to me? Oh, please, they threw me out of the 6th grade chorus. Now, as for singing, you should have heard my sister, Cassandra. She had a voice that was magical. You rarely speak of her. It was a long time ago when she died. Cassie was beautiful and good at everything she tried. I was the gawky one. Cassie had long blonde hair, was tall and incredibly smart. That was the only thing we shared, a love of books. What was she like? She was kind, except when I got on her nerves. She used to say, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the ugliest of them all? She did not. My parents would never have allowed such obvious lies. Thanks. You know, Leland used to dance with Esmeralda. We never got to dance at our so-called wedding. He grinned, his eyes lit up, making his handsome face even more alluring. If dancing is what you want. Romere took her hand and swooped her into his arms. Heart throbbing in a sensual joy, she laughed at his romantic nature. We have no music. Who needs music when we have the stars shining down on us? Miranda looked up. That we do. She remembered how they'd sword dance. Romere was far more graceful in his steps than she'd ever be. As the sun slowly set behind the hills, they swayed to the music only they could hear, and Miranda smiled at the perfect serenity they shared. Her body attuned it to his in sensual harmony, their breaths, their vibrations, and spiritual synchronicity. This had to be one of the most romantic nights of her life. The moon nearly full, the cool breezes washing over them, the night gleaming with stars. Miranda couldn't remember a time when she was happier. They continued dancing in the moonlight, glowing with the love they shared. She used her power to levitate them. Romare looked amazed that they were dancing high in the air. Sorceress. She laughed. Do you think we'll be dancing like this years from now? His brow arched. Centuries from now, if you wish. Right then, under the starry sky, she made a decision. 1 year from now, Romare, I'll give you my answer. One answer. She lowered them to the surface. If we'll have centuries together. He stopped dancing. You mean, I'll tell you if I decide to become a vampire. Romare laughed in delight as his eyes sparkled in the evening sky, shining as brightly as the moon and the stars above. That is from Veil of Destiny by Diana Marik. And now we are switching over to The Year of Sicily by Lisa Lynn. The American Airlines employee behind the counter finally announced boarding was about to begin. Cicely hoisted her travel bag, carry-on luggage, and took one deep breath, said a quick prayer to whichever deity was listening before getting in line. Please let me survive the next 5 days without losing my temper and wanting to kill anyone. And please, please, please do not let him be there. 6 hours later, Cicely was walking through baggage claim, ready to head outside to hail a cab to make her way to Brooklyn. She couldn't help but be smug at all the poor suckers waiting by the carousels while she sailed through with her carry-on. Her phone was blowing up with missed calls from her mother. She rolled her eyes and was digging it out of her purse to call her back when she rammed into a solid wall of muscle. A pair of arms reached out to steady her. Already mumbling an apology, she didn't notice that wall of muscle had gone still. Cicely? The voice was deep, incredulous, and all too familiar. No, could not be. Cicely stifled a curse as her fingers dug into her palms. She looked up, and sure enough, it was him. Damn it to hell. All that praying had been in vain because after all, because there he was, Jeffrey Lee, in the flesh, plain as day. Crap. Resolution 1, broken. She hadn't gone looking for drama, but drama sure as hell found her. Jeffrey couldn't stop the goofy grin from spreading across his face. It was as if fate had handed him a second chance and dropped it right into his lap. He couldn't have written a better meet-cute if he tried. Of all the gin joints in all the towns, he murmured. The deep brown eyes he hadn't been able to forget for 10 years glared at him. Truth be told, Cicely had been glaring at him like that since they were both in diapers, and the familiarity of it was a soothing balm. He'd always believed the opposite of love wasn't hate, but indifference. If the glare was anything to go by, she was not indifferent, and it wasn't ideal, but he'd take it. She looked like a little elf bundled in her puffy winter jacket and red pom-pom hat, a scowling elf radiating hostility and aggravation. Definitely not the image one wants of Santa's little helper. What are you doing here? She blurted. He raised a brow. I imagine the same thing you are. At her blank expression, he elaborated. Home for the New Year command performance, to play the dutiful son and the epitome of faithful piety. I don't remember you being here last year. She'd noticed his absence. He was going to take that as a good sign. There were extenuating circumstances. Must have been for Pam I.E. to let you off the hook. She raised a brow. Technically, there was no blood relationship between their families, but Cicely still called his mother Auntie. He coughed awkwardly. Yeah, well, hoping to avoid that minefield, he quickly changed the subject. We should head out. My Uber is going to be here in a few minutes. The same blank expression. Jet lag hitting you a little hard, is it? He teased. She frowned. I never said I was getting to share a car with you. I can get my own cab or take the subway. You're going to take the subway all the way to Brooklyn? I don't think so. Cicely bristled. I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself. I've been doing it for a while. The unspoken, you of all people should know that, you big jackass, hung in the air between them. She turned to leave, and he shot out an arm to stop her. Well, consider getting a free Uber as me paying for my penance. She cocked her head and gave him the side-eye. One Uber ride and the slate is wiped clean. Really? A guy's got to start somewhere. The road to forgiveness can be long. Might as well try to navigate it quicker with an Uber. Jeffrey saw her fight a grin and knew he'd won when she let out an exasperated huff of breath. He gave himself a moment to savor the hard-won victory. It was rare for anyone to win against Cicely Chang. He'd consider it as rare as a Yeti sighting. I want it on record that I am only accepting your offer under great duress, and because I'm too tired and jet-lagged to fight with you about this. Always the attorney. You bet your ass. Shaking his head at her stubbornness, he grabbed his carry-on suitcase and hefted her bag onto his shoulder. Ignoring her indignant protests, he led them out onto the sidewalk where the Uber was waiting. That is Lisa Lynn's The Year of Sicily. thank you so much for joining me this snowy morning. Again, apologies for this posting late. I appreciate everyone's patience, and I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.